Hi, I am Rachel McCloud, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and emotional wellness coach. And today I want to talk with you about one of the challenges adult children of emotionally unwell mothers face and how to resolve that. And this video is inspired by a conversation I had. I have this conversation a lot, and I just had one recently, and I was like, I should do a live about this, and because this is so common, especially, and you really, it's not, we have lots of thoughts about this, right? And some of our mothers, um, don't, they're emotionally unwell, but they're really high functioning. And many people around us don't know how unwell they are, or there's a lot of misperception here. Some of us are emotionally unwell mothers, right? I mean, we all of this mothering stuff can really go unnoticed and be off the radar, but it's a really intense, powerful, creative, and not in the best way, um, thing. Which is a major reason why I do this work, because it's really powerful. Mothers are hugely influential. And then growing up as a child of one of these mothers, things can get very tricky. And I'm going to talk about this one thing because it makes a lot of like, if this is you, you'll have a lot of ahas, right? And some of you, your mother was emotionally unwell, and it's like, duh, like, you know it, everybody knew it. You suffered many consequences to this, um, and so I really want to put everyone on the same page here, because we're going to talk about the one thing that we all have in common, whether or not anyone knew the emotional unwellness of our mothers. Right. So let's put that out there first. This is not just for people who their mother was in a psych ward, or, had some, like, multiple personalities, or dissociative identity disorder, or any of those major, major tags, right? Major labels. Um, this is for anybody whose mother was emotionally unwell. And my list for that is not being able to manage their emotions, and needing to use the children to be able to do that. As long as you're in that category, using your children to be emotionally well, for you to be emotionally well, you fall into this. And if that's where you're at now, this talk may be very triggering for you, because you are at the point where you're trying desperately to be emotionally well, and you are raising children in that environment. And what I want to tell you here is that, you didn't get it from nowhere, number one. And number two, when you do your healing work, you become the not only the giver of the problem, but the giver of the solution. And that is not something you can tell your children to do. It is something that you embody and you model. And you do that by resolving this issue that I'm going to talk about. So I want you to know, you come into this life with challenges, and if your challenge is an emotionally unwell children mother, and you're watching your children get that, it's time to get to work. That's the answer. You might feel sad and they're terrible and bad, and you might have a huge emotional experience because of the whole emotional unwellness that is being passed down cyclically and generationally. But it can stop with you. It absolutely can. And it's okay. Okay. Um, it's really okay. It's really okay to be there. It's really okay to be right where you are right now. And as a matter of fact, it is wonderful. And your children have the best chance ever, and you have the best chance ever to stop this generational ball from continuing to roll. But it's not going to come by not looking at it in the face. It's not going to come by avoiding it. It's not going to come by sticking your head in the sand. You can fantasize about that. I'm with you. But ultimately, you got to pull your head out of the sand and get busy. And so, not in your old ways. We've done that for enough decades to know that that is not where the solution lies. So let's talk about this problem, and let's get it rolling and moving. The problem is that I see across the board is that you are really good and great even at helping other people, but you cannot seem, and you're starting to notice that you cannot seem to give that same caring to yourself. that when you try, it doesn't feel right, it feels wrong, you feel selfish, you feel uncertain. You might be somebody who creates beautiful space for other people to do their healing work. And you might even have feelings about them, anger, rage, frustration, but instead of putting them out where they belong in a healthy way, they're coming back to you, and you feel guilty and angry and resentful, and you're suppressing all this anger and rage, and you don't know what to do with it, right? Like, and like, you can help your neighbor do something with their anger, rage, and frustration, but when you look here, you're like, what do I do with all this? And I'm going to explode. And or maybe you don't know that you're going to explode yet, but news flash, that's down the road somewhere. But you might notice it already happening as you're having mini explosions. You're snapping at people around you. You feel like you can't keep all the plates spinning, and you have this intense signal coming from the inside that you are severely neglected. That you're neglected. You're not giving yourself what you need. You're not getting enough sleep. You're not eating right. You're not talking right. You're not talking about the things that you need to talk about. There's no place for you. There's no space. And you don't know how to get it for yourself. And let me tell you, this all boils down to what happened in the early dynamics with you as a child. And I know you may not want to talk about that, but the deal is that your nervous system was developing then, and many of the things it learned then, it still carries on. And we can get in there and we can interact with your nervous system and really start creating new changes and change the situation on the nervous system level. But it has to be done. And so we need to know what we're working with, and what you are working with, if your mother was emotionally well when you were little, is you are working with your nervous system being programmed and accustomed and conditioned in a specific way. And what happens when you're little and your mom is emotionally unwell? Let me take you back to birth. Okay, so you're birthed. Here you are, little baby, and you've got this whole little body that's being wired with your emotions and your thoughts and your feelings and the sensations that are coming on in your body that are coming up, and you're getting hooked up. And if you've been touched and you've been rubbed and you've been rocked, this connection and your neurological growth and hooking up all this machine that this is in this little body is happening well, right? But you might be also picking up things in your environment as you age, that things are not safe, like the screaming around in the background, or the crying that mom is doing, or the being yanked and shaped. I don't know if you're being yanked and shaped, hopefully you're not, but let's just say that you're picking up signals. Your nervous system is picking up stuff that maybe your thinking center is not ready to hold yet because it's not developed, but your body remembers, your nervous system remembers, your subconscious mind remembers, and your survival system remembers. Everybody knows except for maybe your thinking center. And everybody's shifting to accommodate this. And so here you are with all of this. And then what happens next is you start to grow and you start to be aware of the outside world. And if you're in a healthy, safe environment, you come to this with your own selfishness. You only know yourself. And that's all you know. And you're hungry, you're sleepy, you're sad, you're mad. And there's you are. And you're being this person. And if you could stay there, you would figure out how this whole self thing runs. And then you would be able to start working it. Okay. And if mom and dad were healthy, they'd be able to say, oh man, it looks like you're having a difficult time. And they would start hooking up words to your thoughts and your feelings and your experience. And you would say, I am. Or maybe they'd say, this is frustration. Oh, I'm frustrated. Now you have words, right? So you're communicating. And there can hold space for a big meltdown. And you're having all these tears and crying because crying is your body going into a healing mode. And if you have healthy family members, they're letting you do that. They're letting your body naturally and primally move emotion. And at some point, if you've got an emotionally unwell mom, this becomes very inconvenient for her in the sense that she can no longer keep herself well and you well, right? And so because it's too much for her for whatever reasons, right? And so what happens here is that we will go into a survival state, and survival states make it so that you stop holding space for anybody else but yourself. That's just a part of that brain. We can demonize it all we want to, but it's just how that part of the brain works. And so this is why it's important to watch my other videos, why I talk about we really want to get out of that brain state as fast as possible, because most of life is not about surviving. But if you've got all this backed up anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress, most of your life is about surviving. And so you are going back into this back of the brain where you have no space for another human, including your own child, as much as you would like to, right? And if you're getting kicked back to the back of your brain, you're going to be doing survival mode and survival states and survival stuff that is not logical, but that makes total sense to your survival system. And when you get back there, you don't get a choice. So your mom is going into a survival state, and here you are, and she is no longer taking into consideration you as a whole person, and she's freaking out. And you learn that by trial and error, that if you do this, all of a sudden she's calm, right? And now your whole system says, okay, we're all right. Mom's okay now, you know? And then mom starts to freak a little bit, and then you do that thing again, and mom's calm. And so your nervous system learns, okay, we just got to do that thing. And then the next thing mom does, and you do that thing, it doesn't work, but you learn if you do this thing, it does work. And the next thing you know, after years and years and years, you've learned out how to make mom work and function. And you're good at this. But the problem here is, and then by the time you're older, she needs you to do this. And if you try to move away to do it, mom can't function because mom didn't learn how to build it from the inside. Mom needs you now. And so you're trying to individuate, become your own person, and mom's not doing well. And you notice that intuitionally and on a primal level, and you come back here and you help stabilize mom, and you try to go off, and right. And so, but what happens during all this time is that when you were little, that was your time to figure out how your machine works. And now you are now an adult, and the only machine you know how to work is your mom's and the people outside of you. Okay. But you have all these desires and these cravings and these this intellectual need that you have all these needs and wants, and you don't know how to work it from the inside. You know only how to get your safety by making sure everyone else around you is good, that they don't do this freak out thing. And if anybody does, you're like right there, like, hey, what's going on? Right. And so what happens here, and what I notice is that, especially, so you'll build this life, and at some point you will realize that you don't know how to make it work. You've got anxiety, it's blaring. You don't know how to make that stop. You're not sleeping well. You've got racing thoughts before you go to bed. Your insomnia's developed. You don't know how to make that stop. Right? You're using medication, you're using anything you can from the outside world, and you don't know how to make that stop. Right? And that is because you did not get to spend time to figure out how your machine works. And no matter what you do for everybody else out there, you don't know how to do this. And typically those types of people go ahead and they find people that need some support to work because they know how to do that. That's comfortable to their nervous system. And now you're recreating these scenarios at work, with your coworkers, with your spouses, with your children. You're recreating this, and your nervous system is like this. At some levels, it's really cool, calm, and collected because it's like, I know how to do this. And at other levels, it's totally freaking out because it's like, this is bad. And then there's all the neglect that you're experiencing from yourself because of your own emotional neglect. You learned neurologically that you neglect yourself to get your needs met. It's a survival strategy. And it has everything to do not with your thinking center, but with the survival system. And it's wired in like that. Okay. So some of your survival strategies will look very different than other people's survival strategies. You will go out and you will serve more, and you will help more, and you will get in other people's business more, and you will start more businesses. You will do things because that is how your nervous system is wired, to help you feel safe and to help you feel like you can survive in the world. And so it's part of your calming coping mechanisms, but it's destroying your life, right? It's no different. This is the same thing with alcohol, right? I mean, it's using alcohol to soothe the nervous system. Same thing with sex or shopping or scrolling or all the mindless activities we do because we're trying to soothe. We're trying to calm ourselves. We're trying to get back into a state where we can feel comfortable and good. And for some of us, this one challenge of being great at helping other people run and function in their lives, we can't do the same for ourselves. And then we're mad at everybody because we're like, I'm doing all this for you. Where is it for me? You know, and let me answer that for you right now. Let me tell you where it is for you. It's in you for you to do, you know, and that's, and that can be overwhelming because you can really feel like you're starting from scratch. And so, and guess what? You might be starting from scratch because the work that was done did not get done. But what happens with brains are great at healing this. Brains are ready to wire and fire at any time. And that's really the first step to doing this, is that really it's time to hook up your own system. It's time for you to get inside there and start wiring the things in that need to be in there. The ability to know what your emotions are, the ability to give words to your thoughts and feelings, to the ability to ask for what you need. That thing right there, that subconscious program, I'm telling you, is full of survival distress. And until you clear off that survival distress, you will not be able to run that program outside of a survival state. Every time you ask to get your needs met, you will go into a survival state. And that means you might fight about it. That means you might be manipulative, you might be passive aggressive, you might go totally passive, you might go totally out of character in that one thing. And that is because that asking for your needs is associated with survival distress. And we need to unhook that from there and really hook it in and make it function so that you can ask for your needs without all the survival energy that goes into it. And the survival energy is fight, flight, freeze, faint, or fawn. You know, when you ask for your needs and you fawn all over somebody, that's the people pleasing. When you fight about it, right, you're snapping and you're asking for what you need more and harder than necessary. And they're like, sheesh, okay, dude. You know, but they don't know that it's that you're having to come through all this fear, terror, survival stuff just to ask for one thing. And they're just like, oh, okay, flee. Maybe you're running from asking for what you need. Maybe every time you do, you're going to faint. You're literally falling asleep. Um, and there's another one, I can't think of it at the moment, but but you get my point, is that things get really strange when it's survivally. We want to pull that survival energy out of there, and your brain has a specific process for doing that. And the thing is, you just need to do the process. Help your brain with that process to take this need to ask for help for what you need, asking for your needs, and walk it through your brain's healing pathways, healing process. Your brain has a process for this. I'm talking about this in all of my videos. And then you ask for you figure out what the next one is. The next one is that I don't know. Let me see one that's practical. Um, I have a client who gets up to a certain emotion and then totally backs off. They have so much suppressed rage. And if you're in this situation with an emotionally unwell mother, you may also have so much suppressed rage. And it's like they cannot get there. There was no, when you tried to express rage between you and the mom before, it was punished, or it was somehow you did it and then she crumbled into a piece. Like you somehow learned that rage was not okay. And so you package that up and set it to the side, but there's no real pathways to it. There's no programming for safely running the rage elimination program. That needs to be built in. We need to get in there and walk your rage through your brain's healing process, because there's a lot of really great information in there. Surprising, but also suppressed rage is not good for your health. And also, if you begin to access it, your brain will believe it's a survival state, because you need to suppress somewhere your brain has learned you need to suppress rage in order to survive, or you will be rejected, you will be abandoned. All of those are death to the brain, because we're tribal and our instinctual nature is to be together, or the lion will come and grab the one standing alone, right? And so these things are very dangerous to us. They will be rejected, ridiculed, shamed, belittled. If it thinks that that's a possibility because of this, you're in a survival state. So it can get it, your inability to get your needs met is not at all your fault. It is how you are wired. And so it's really going to be about rewiring that, and really only you can do that. You've got to be the one to do that for yourself, and it's incredibly awesome. It's faster than you think, and it's so liberating because you take off, because your system starts to become um, independent. And this is a good independence, because this is the independence you need to cultivate to be able to start opening up to the world, to start doing interdependence. Right? Anywhere that you're dependent, you have a hole for codependents to sneak in, grab, and hook up with you. And now you're doing a codependent dance with somebody else, and that stuff hurts. It hurts eventually. But sometimes we do it because we're noticing that we're starving in an area. We have nothing in an area, and at least this will be better than having nothing. And when we make these trades, these codependent trades, you help me like this, I'll help you like this. You don't question me, you don't hold me to any expectations, I won't hold you to any expectations, right? These trades that we're making are unlimited. They're as creative as you can get. There they are. But we really want your emotions to move themselves. We want your thoughts to help you. We want your body to be working with you. We want cohesion, right? We want this whole thing to be functioning beautifully. And it's going to take some work to do that. We need to get in there and wire these things in. And I don't know exactly what you need. That's usually part of my assessment process, right? So I can't do that from here, but I can tell you that there is a process to hook this stuff up, to regulate your nervous system, to recondition your nervous system, and to take all that survival energy, that inaccurate survival energy, out of there, and all the associations that you've made incorrectly with what survival is and what it isn't. And so that you're free to live and not just survive. And this is huge. This is really, really, really what we're looking at. And so I want to just talk about that I wanted to, you to understand that this, the feelings you have that you haven't had words for, they're real. And the reasons why you have them are real, and there is a real solution to solving that. And it does have to do with getting in there. Just all that work that wasn't done in childhood, that's the work that needs to be done. And it's just a matter of wiring the brain. And you want to fire up specific parts for specific functions. And the more that you do, the more solid those connections get. And when I'm teaching people to do this, I teach them 4 interventions straight off the bat, because we're going in and we got a lot of work to do. And I want them to have the most powerful tools to be able to do this. And so I teach them emotional freedom techniques, thought field therapy, eye movement, desensitization and reprocessing, so EMDR, and energy medicine. And so, because I'm looking for what their brain likes, and I start teaching them based on the wiring they're trying to accomplish, so that we know that we have the right tools doing the right thing. And so we keep building their skill and doing the work and building their skills. So those 4, using those 4 interventions, and then finding the symptoms, finding the distress, finding the stressors in your life, and grabbing them, and really starting to walk all of that and get your brain to clean that up and clear out the issues, the emotions, the negative associations that brains make, that send you straight back to your survival system. And so we want to get this thing in there, and then get that part of the brain. What it does is it looks at it and it's like, oh, this isn't supposed to be like that. It's not, this is how it's supposed to be. And then it starts to do that, and then it'll make that, and then you will watch yourself running that program. It's awesome. And so I need to jump off. I do have another session. That's why but I wanted to talk about this, and I was like, you should totally give this more time, but I trusted we would have exactly the right amount of time. And so I wanted to give you that, and to let you know that that's a thing. and and really, if this is something that you want my help with, you can go to my website to learn more about working with me. You can go to rachelmccloud.com, and you can get so much information there about what to do next, and also just be watching more videos. We'll be talking about this. So, and I'm going to read this from Jess. She said, in my sober mom groups, um, seem to be common barrier to recovery of guilt from things we did during pregnancy. Yeah, I'm not quite following exactly, but I think that guilt in motherhood is a big thing, and it's a big emotion that needs to really be moved. It can create a lot of chaos, and disharmony and frustration and limitations and blocks. And so it's an emotion like any other, and it just needs to be grabbed up and moved through the brain's healing process. So you really can use these interventions with that guilt and forward, move it forward. And I think that's the deal, is that and not just the guilt. I think you're probably experiencing grief. Grief what you lost, grief what your actions have led to. And that's a lot of emotion coming through. That's all very worthy and wonderful to move through, because we don't get to go back in time and do things differently. Right? And when we move the guilt, we move the shame, and we move the grief, we get to create a whole new way of being in the world. If you do not move that emotion, you repeat cycles. That is how it works. And if you want to get out of a cycle of creating guilt so that you can feel more guilt, because that's what happens, uh, then you leave that. And that's really what we're talking about. And we don't want that. We want to break these cycles and get out and be new people and live our best life now. And so many of us have all kinds of stories, not all of them having to do with drugs or alcohol, um, but no matter what, we got to make peace with that and move forward. But when we talk about making peace with that, that means getting in there with some dealing with the emotional pieces, because you probably look back and you can think about it and you understand and you can reason with it, but it still feels really heavy. And that is because you don't have a logical problem with what you did. You have an emotional problem with what you did. And you must address this at the place where you have the problems, which is the emotion. And so even though you think you should get over it already, your other parts of the brain are not there yet. And so do that work, and get support with doing that work and break free of that. Okay, so I will talk to you later, and wonderful connecting with you all. Bye.